Hi everyone, we are back on our YouTube channel Raid OverSimplified. Before we get started on this Baltimore, New England today, let's go Ravens. I've got a $50 friendly bet with Degenerate Bin on this game, so if the Ravens lose to the disgusting evil empire that is the Patriots, I am actually giving out 10 free subs to his stream. Link to his stream is in the description below. It will happen either tonight or over the next 2 or 3 days, likely both. One of the most common questions people ask me on YouTube and elsewhere, really probably the most common question, is what masteries do I use? In a similar vein to artifact gearing, I really only talk about it if it's something that I feel is indispensable to that particular champion. It has to work so well with gear and ability that it creates a holistic synergy, right? The whole must be, significantly greater than the sum of its parts for me to really drag it out and address it specifically. On the contrary, if I'm feeling ambivalent about a decision and every choice seems nothing more than situational at best, I'm not going to waste your valuable and limited attention to address that indifference. What I've realized in this game is that Masteries tends to be more than meets the eye, though, if you will. There are a lot of potential synergies that just don't always jump right off the page at you. It kind of takes a little bit of time to figure it out. Having said that, we did just have a double epic and legendary Halloween event. I'm sure a lot of people pulled multiple new champions that they need to gear and scroll. As I deal with that chaos myself, I thought it's not a bad time to share my philosophy on masteries and kind of break them down individually and talk about where they might be useful. As stated with everything on this channel, this is purely my opinion and never applicable to 100% of situations. If you disagree in general, that's fine. I form and reform new opinions all the time. If you disagree for a specific situation, that's fine as well. I don't really know what your situation is, so I can't really comment on that. This is simply my thoughts on how to get the most out of masteries in conjunction to potential gearing options. Of course, I oversimplify everything on this channel. That's what it's about, but I'm really going to grossly generalize this one because I have to. There are just far too many potential combinations between set effects, team comp, speed tuning, various other factors, so on and so forth, to actually speak in any kind of absolute or encompassing term. I really hope I'm clear on that. The answer to, hey, what mastery should I use on this other guy or this guy XYZ is always, it depends on what you're using it for and what else you're using for it. Sometimes it's fairly black and white, but a lot of the time it's really not. So that's why I'm sharing these kind of outer space level view on mastery, so that maybe I can help influence you to craft the best possible combination for the specific scenario that you find yourself in. Before we get too deep into the masteries, there are a few sets that changes the way I do masteries much more so than other sets. The stun and freeze set on the crowd control side demands this fearsome presence in my opinion. The shield set may take you down this other side of the support tree. I take Helm Smasher 9 times out of 10 for champions on the Savage set, and the Frenzy set specifically throws absolutely everything into a spin. Alright, so I created this graphic here to demonstrate how I would delegate masteries. Each color is marked at the same spot within each frame. The red dot means pure nuker, the purple means utility nuker, the blue is a pure utility, green means utility tank, yellow means pure tank, and this bigger goldish dot here represents the most fundamental routes that I think provides the most value to most champions in most cases. It's what I tend to default to based on my experience playing so far. When I'm not really sure, it may not be the most optimized choice at all times, but I know for a fact that it's reliably delivering significant value at all times. Think of it as a basic, right? Like Taylor Swift level basic recommendation on what to prioritize. Hence the blonde coloring here. When you see it, think of Tay-Tay. This is, by the way, how I classify roles. The game uses assignments like HP, defense, support, or whatever. That's not really all that useful in my opinion, because you can gear champions for different roles. So for example, Nethro is technically classified as an attacker. I've never seen one built as a nuker because he has such incredible support capabilities, and they're not exactly fast acting, so you might want him to survive. The same deal with Dracomorph. Bellower is also classified as a support, but people likes to build him, you know, pure nuke for speed farming. I've never bothered building one, but I kind of see that a lot. Some champions are viable in 2 or even 3 roles. It just all depends on what you gear them with. Since we are really oversimplifying today, pure nuker is like Baron. Think of it like very limited buffs or debuffs. You just want damage. Utility nuker is like Xavier. I know a lot of people like to build her a pure utility, but I don't agree with that. I have her built just nuclear with 280 accuracy, so I like on her. Big On also kind of that same boat. He's also a poster boy for this particular category. Pure utility, think of it as Ghostborn, Lysandra. There's not a whole lot of damage, but they're not really that tanky either base stat wise. Just does a whole bunch of really scary things. Utility tank is a little harder to qualify in my opinion. The lines are blurred a little bit more, but I think of Skartorsis, Rosin, Arbiter as well. There's a little tankier than your Ghostborn, but just maybe not quite the same level of utility or burst utility, if you will. Pure breed tanks are, everybody knows about Valkyrie, Molly Tankard, or even a really tanky Martyr, so on and so forth. They typically do quite a bit to help your team survive, and not necessarily always through debuffs either. Alright, moving on to the actual masteries. This is always useful unless you don't need it. If you have high enough crit rate, then go ahead and take this, but I try to take this and move the extra stat to something else. Most of the time I don't have the extra crit rate anyway. Crit damage is nice if you're doing something really specific like the arena. Take the shield breaker, and this can be useful full HP if you have like like a bad L or something that's keeping your team at full health. I don't really like this, but if you're on an unkillable, that could help. I don't really use this. This is all PvE, dungeons type of oriented masteries, while this is more of what I would consider a the more important ones for what I do for the most part with my nukers. This is absolutely crucial, speeds them up. Unless you're speed tuned, then don't use this instead maybe, but then that would require you to take shield breaker. So if you're forced to take this, sometimes I do. This is probably the most crucial attack mastery in the game, in my opinion, bar none. Maybe some of these tier 6 sometimes. Yeah, this one and this one specifically, but I would say outside of these two on the bottom, this one's the most important. Extra damage here never hurts. Blood shield, some of you saw my Mountain King video. I was able to solo teams because of this, but it's niche to a certain extent, but it's when you have it and when you get it to work on something that's tanky enough to leverage it, it's fantastic. These are, for the most part, pretty good. My favorite is this one right here. I like the ignore defense. This is for the full ignore defense characters like Baron, for example, Royal Huntsman, Blood Gorged. Obviously, one hit over here, triple hit over here, but these are all kind of more PvE oriented. If I have something with 50% ignore defense, like Mountain King, Krutraxa, I'm going with this. Okay, alright, so moving on over here to the defensive masteries, and this is kind of where it starts to get a little more colorful. All 3, or I guess all 5 roles can make good use of this tree at a certain point. Personally, I like the resistance, but resistance is one of those things you really have to stack. So more often than not, I actually go with the defense. But when you need the resistance, this is fantastic. This is just there. We just have to get by this tier. I don't really think anything here is terrific. This is pretty good, especially for arena, but I'm finding more and more uses for it in other places like Faction War, even Clan Boss. If my counterattack is not up, I'm experimenting. And then this is really useful for anything that has a hard crowd control. You know, if you're applying stun, whether it's on the stun set or even better if it's like Fushan or Nethril that's applying stun anyway. Shirmani was applying 100% freeze, Gurgle, because of several reasons. One, it gives you a little bit of a leech. I mean, yeah, it's cool, but it's not a, you know, not a great source of healing, I wouldn't say, in general. But however, when you combo this with Arcane Celerity, it's just an extra way of getting extra turn meter, and that actually makes a significant difference over time. So these two are both very arena focused for the most part. I really like this counterattack, but you know, if I don't need a counterattack on something like the Arbiter, like what is she gonna counterattack and maybe possibly weaken someone? No thanks, right? I'll take this. And then down here, pretty much the only one I take is this. I've tried this. It's viable if you're not on a stun set. As a matter of fact, I would probably, if you're not on a stun set and you're not stacking resistance, then you're sort of forced to take this if you have no other options in whichever other tree that you've opened. Okay, so out of that, you know, this is obviously very good, the staple. I don't use it if it's something that doesn't require debuffs, like Vrask, for example. Not gonna take it. I'm not sure why Vrask will be on a support tree, but just in case he is, when I first started, I had mine as offense and support, and then once I realized how important some of these are, I've grown out of that Vrask phase, so mine is still offense and support. And at that time, even then, I had the presence of mind to take this. This is good. This is useful if you're not going down this side of the tree. So I take this if I don't need any of these, because none of these are any good, and I'm not going down the buff side, so then might as well. This mastery right here, Arcane Celerity, it is one of the most important masteries in the game. It gives you a chance of boosting your turn meter when one of your debuffs expires. This is incredible. This kind of works the same, but it applies to buffs. Most champions have debuffs and only a handful has buffs, so this one is a lot more common. Just be really careful though, because if you have something that's very, very carefully crafted in terms of speed tuning, this can and will screw it up a lot. Something really interesting about this particular mastery is that it serves as a differentiator between champions and the way that their skills are structured, much more so than I realized as an earlier game player. For example, Xayvia has an ability that applies two stacks of poison, while Tomb Lord has the ability to apply 4 1-stack poison. So that's really important because he has 4 opportunities to proc this. Well, he's front loading his damage, so it's more explosive in the first place, and also he has 4 opportunities of practice to Xayvia's 2 opportunity delayed 1 turn later. Right, that's tremendously important. That just puts a big difference between those 2 abilities. And also this Master Hexer, this kind of works in reverse to this. This is actually very interesting. Like Arcane Celerity, you want your champions to apply widespread debuff. So for example, like Dracomorph, who applies 3 turns of poison, you have 4 opportunities to apply Master Hexer, even though it works against Arcane Celerity, but I'll still take it. You just have, let's say that something else is able to apply that same count of poison in 2 6 stacks, right? So you don't get as many opportunities to increase, and at the same time, you don't get as many opportunities to boost your turn meter. They definitely favor one types of champion over another. Either way, these are both just tremendous value. This is also pretty good for buffers if your champion does apply a buff. I'm not a big fan of any of these tier 6 masteries. I think I have maybe one champion on each of these three, nothing on this. I just don't think they help too much in comparison to some of these over here. We skipped over this tier. Pretty standard. I like to take these two unless I have like a healer or something like that. This third, what's that? 1, 2, 3, 4. This fourth tier in general isn't too amazing outside of this and this. So if you're going down a support tree, at least for me, it's pretty standard that I take them both. This can be a lifesaver situation. I've heard people say it's 95% failure rate, and I agree. But there's just not a whole lot of alternatives, and it can save you in a tough spot. I like this quite a bit, but I'm using 4 sets more and more so than I ever had before. So this is diminishing in value, but on things like Lysandra, Baron, I have Xavier built, speed, accuracy, things like that. This can really accentuate their stats in certain categories, and that's great. Anyways, that is it for the oversimplification of Masteries in Raid. I will upload this image and link it in the description as well. There is a lot more I want to share on the topic, but I don't have the time or the direction to know where to take it from here. I would be very curious on what the response to this video is. If you guys find it informative, we could possibly do an oversimplification of Mastery Synergy or something like that as a part 2 of a series. If you guys think this is all you would want to hear on the subject, then we'll just leave it as that. Thanks for watching. I hope you do drop by the Degenerate stream tonight. He has really been picking up steam lately. If you come in tonight specifically, there's a chance you could win a free sub. The Ravens are probably not going to lose, but you never know. I hope you're enjoying the grind and have a great day.